I remember it like it was yesterday. He texted me. It was like noon or something, and he was like, "Hey man, here's this buck." He's like, you care if I kill it? And I was like, man, that's a nice buck. I'd probably shoot that. I haven't shot a buck in years since my first one, you know. And I was like, oh yeah, dude. I was like, get out there. What are you waiting on, you know? And I think I got the text at like 5:30 or something, and he was all excited. He had got it. And man, I tell you what, my drive from my house to there, oh man, I felt like I shot the deer.
Lights, camera,
Follow the trail.
ready to shoot.
If you know where a deer's bedding and you know where he's eating, that deer should be dead.
If you're passive on a deer, what you're doing is you're teaching them.
I've got 30 bucks in the Michigan record book. Everyone but one has had at least one previous wound on his body. Some had as many as 4.
Trail Cam Radio from the guys at Exodus.
All right, we are live at the office. It's been a really long time since we've had someone in studio. We've been doing all the driving, and it's nice to have someone in the office here. We got Mike Adams. And if you don't know Mike, who are you? Where are you from? A quick little introduction of yourself.
Man, great to be here in the building with the Exodus guys. I'm an Ohio guy, originally from Pennsylvania, but spent my childhood and college years and everything in Ohio. Played football for the Buckeyes from 2008 to 12, number 75, played left tackle. All Big Ten guy there a couple times, second-round draft pick with the Pittsburg Steelers, 2012. Did 4 years there, played for the Bears for a year after that, and then called it a day. And now I'm here hunting deer, you know, having fun, hanging out, enjoying the fall with my buddies.
Very cool. I would say you're not the typical person we've interviewed. We haven't interviewed any former professional athletes. So you had – break that down. So obviously you played high school football, then you went to play Division I football, and then NFL career. Do you just want to dive into that a little bit more? I know there's a ton of different things and a million different stories. But
Oh, yeah. So high school years, I grew up in Dublin, Ohio, outside of Columbus, suburb. Played at Dublin Kaufman High School. Really, really big football school, great program. Had great coaches, was blessed and able to be the number 3 player overall in the country my senior year. So I had offers from every school in the country except for Texas. They didn't offer offensive linemen out of state unless you said you wanted to go there first. So it was one of those things. Real hard on
Calling Coach Mack out, huh? Yeah.
Yeah. Went to Ohio State to play for Jim Tressel. Considered a couple other schools, Florida, LSU, USC, when Pete Carroll was there. But stayed home. I was 10 minutes from campus in high school, so it was just a short hop, skip, not even a jump away. Then Ohio State, played 4 years there for Tressel. Started as a sophomore, played a lot as a freshman, started as a sophomore, all Big Ten as a junior and senior. Had a heck of an experience in college, like a lot of people do, but just was really blessed to be able to come in contact and meet so many great people, whether it was football, military, business, all types of cool things. Coach Tressel, he's a local guy here. He's special. He's one of those people that you don't get to meet too often. So it was a unique experience. And then went on to Pittsburgh, played for Mike Tomlin, the Pittsburgh Steelers. That was a heck of an experience. Anytime you have a dream you've been working for or living for 20 some years, especially as a young adult, it's basically your whole life. And you get to live those out. It's a pretty surreal thing, and it's been something that's really taught me a lot of lessons in life, and it was also something that was taken away from me relatively fast. So it's something that taught me a lot of lessons about perseverance, patience, commitment, facing adversity head on, and being better for it. It was an interesting ride, football.
I think one of the interesting things there, and we'll dive into some hunting stuff later after I guess we breeze over your your athletic career, but there's a lot of guys that go to the league, and as you said, like, you spend your whole life as an athlete working towards one goal, and for a lot of people, that's the only thing that they know. Like, that is their life, and without it, they're lost. But as you said, like, maybe injuries or whatever had happened, and that got taken. Your career was shorter than what you had thought or what had hoped. Like, you still have a ton of other aspirations, like we were talking about before we started recording. Like, you have a lot going on, and it's cool to see somebody in your situation still, like, face that adversity, move forward, and still be doing such great things with what you have.
Oh yeah, and I mean, and that's the thing, is that key moment of being injured. So what happened was I had a massive herniation in my L5-S1 disc. So they went in, micro discectomy, laminectomy, all that. So I was out for the whole year. I wasn't allowed to do anything but walk for like 10 weeks. And so basically my whole goal was to get strong enough to be able to pull my bow back. I was like, whatever, I'll hunt out a ground blind, do whatever I got to do. As long as I can get out there, I'll be good. Lucky enough, my mother actually for Christmas bought me a nice 15-foot redneck blind. She was like, well, if you're going to be out there, you might as well enjoy it. Merry Christmas. And so I had a heck of a year. Shot my first buck that year, 11 point with a drop tine, sitting in some woods that me and some cousins had permission on, and in a tree stand that was there for way too many years for me to be sitting in. And I was nervous as all heck the whole time. It was my first year hunting. I didn't wear a safety harness or anything, didn't know anything about that. I had only been shooting a bow for about a year. But the wind was blowing, the tree stand shaking. I'm holding on to the tree, and all of a sudden I hear some sticks breaking behind me, and I just see this buck just trotting. And he came right under me, like directly under the tree. And I tried to stop him. He wouldn't stop, slowed down. So I shot him, ended up shooting him right in the butt, right in the back leg. He ran about 30 yards, fell down. I could see the luminoc in the cornfield waving around when he was breathing. So I went up, put another one in him. And it was just the most exhilarating but humbling experience that I had at that point. Just to, go through that whole, roller coaster of emotions, from shooting the deer, seeing that I didn't put a good shot on him, watching him go down within eyesight of the stand, knowing, and then having to go put another arrow in him. And I had my an older cousin with me. It was like an uncle, the one who got me into hunting, and he was sitting in a stand about 100 yards to the north of me. And so, I climbed out of the stand so excited. It was unbelievable, and I've been hooked ever since.
So you mentioned, I guess let's back up a little bit. You didn't grow up hunting, obviously, as you just touched on that story, and your cousin, or who was kind of like an uncle figure, got you into the sport. What was that like? Like, what was his pitch to you as a non-hunter to come and learn?
Well, so as a kid, my mom's whole side of the family, they all live out in Berg Hill, Ohio. So it's pretty country, you know what I mean? So I spent some time out in the country as a kid, but never got to hunt. But I did always get to see, like, my cousin and his buddies, heading out to the woods to go hunt, bringing deer back. They were pretty ruthless back in the day, so they would like hang the deer on the swing set and stuff. You know what I mean? Which was awesome for me as a kid. It got me fired up. But when it came time for me to start getting into those things, and I was like at that age, about 10 years old, I moved to Columbus. So then I started playing football as well. So the falls for me were pretty booked up. So when I came back here to Pittsburgh, I'm an hour away from home. It was turkey season. And he was just like, hey, man, you should come hunt some turkeys with me. I think you'd like it. You've never been hunting, but, I know you like the woods and stuff, so let's do it. So I was like, oh, heck yeah, man, let's go. So we go out. It was a morning hunt, put a ground blind up in the middle of a an empty bean field or whatever. and these 2 Jakes come running out, and then we had a couple of Toms coming out too, chasing them around and stuff. And me and another guy were shooting, and we were shooting on 3. I had the bird on the left, he had the bird on the right. And on 2, my bird starts moving just a little bit, right? So, I'm thinking I'm strong, I'll just muscle the gun. And so I take it off my shoulder a little bit, shoot the bird, kill the bird, scope myself. I think I sat there, my cousin's all like, yeah, here we go, you got it. Runs out there to go get it, throws the blind up and everything. I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, man, what happened? I think I shot myself. And the other guy's like, oh, Terry, you might want to see this. Mike's bleeding pretty good. Oh, man, I had a half scope mark just bleeding everywhere. But I was so jacked up that once I was like, got my wits about me, I took a tissue, went hunting for 8 more hours, went home. My mom super glued it shut for me, and it was history.
Good to go.
Yeah, I had football the next day with freaking super glued cut on my face, helmet just smashing on it. So it was raunchy for a couple weeks.
That's a funny story, man. That's good stuff.
Turkey hunting.
Yeah.
Turkey hunting introduces a lot of people because it is just so in your face, and I'll say it's a little bit easier than deer hunting.
A lot of action.
Yeah, they're vocal, so
Yep.
that's cool to hear.
Yeah, and I haven't turkey hunted for 2 years now.
What?
So, yeah.
We got to remedy that.
I know, man. I got to get back out there. My guy I used to turkey hunt with a lot. He's been busy, man. He got a new job and stuff, so it's rough.
I picked that up.
Shout out to Cam there.
We'll have to give him a couple days.
Please.
Hey, he wasn't even working then.
Yeah.
We didn't bring him on until May.
Come on, dude.
He was just dipping you. So what are you doing now to stay busy? I know you got a lot of things going on, but what are you doing now? Or like, what's your typical day look like now?
Oh, man. It kind of just depends on the day. I do I wear a lot of different hats. Right now I'm finishing up training to be a yoga teacher, 100-hour training. Yoga, along with the woods, when I hurt my back, was one of the things that really got me right mentally and physically. So between yoga, spending time in the woods, and coaching NFL linemen for the combine, that's pretty much it for me. Typical day for me, I have been blessed to have really great neighbors, and one of my neighbors, he's got control of over about 1,000 acres, so I help him manage that. So pretty much all spring, summer, we've been doing projects over there. We rented a mulcher and put a couple food plots back in a big 6-acre honeysuckle thicket, and some stuff like that. Reclaim some old crop fields, and just making complete new trails through what seems to be of the 1,000 acres, I think 800 of it is timber. So we had a lot of work for us, but it went really well. Do a lot of that, and then I'm at the gym. I help coach guys for the NFL Combine coming out of college, like I said, NFL linemen specifically, at a place in Newcastle, PA called Grissetti Performance. Been doing that for going on 3 years now. It's kind of the way I get my football fix, you know what I mean? When you do something for 20-plus years and that's what you do every day and that's what your identity's built up around, and it just stops like that, it's something that you're not really ever prepared for. So to be able to have a hand, a little bit of skin still in the game, it feeds that fire still just enough.
And you actually, doing some research prior to today, you dropped a ton of weight from what you are in the NFL to what you are now too. Do you want to touch about that? And a lot of linemen and professional football players, you see them they go from pretty big and then they start running marathons. So. Oh
yeah. It's a weird thing, the big guys in the league, when they get done, they get small, and it seems like a lot of times the small guys get real big. But yeah, I was at one point 360 pounds. Now I'm 250 pounds on a good day. I just didn't need it anymore. You know what I mean? I live a completely different lifestyle now. I probably don't eat half of what I would eat in a day back then. I'm thinking I was probably putting down somewhere around 10,000 calories a day, easy.
That's
You know
insane.
what I mean? And just to be able to maintain a weight like that and to be so active. So that was, when I got done, it was pretty easy to get it off. I did a lot of hot yoga, which is basically like doing calisthenics in a sauna. Cut a lot of sugar out of my diet. Quit eating white starchy foods like white potatoes, white bread, white pasta. Picked up the sweet potatoes and stuff like that, and yeah, it just fell off, and now I feel good, better than ever, really. I'm out in the woods climbing trees like a madman. Freaking Cam says I'm like a black bear. Pun not intended.
Can you keep up with me? You've seen me climb trees with.
I mean, I can shimmy up a bare tree.
Yeah, me too.
All right, we'll have a competition, big guy.
We're
We'll see.
hardos. We'll see.
These Warren guys.
That's
Shout
great.
out to Boom Heron.
Yeah, there you go.
So, turkey hunting was your first introduction. How'd you get into whitetails after that?
Oh man.
Or was it like you were hooked on turkey hunting and you're like, all right, I want to go deer hunting now? Or was that post NFL, or were you trying to do that during the NFL career?
Oh yeah. So basically that spring I started turkey hunting, and I was like, well, I guess I'm gonna have to. We had Tuesdays off at football, not off, but we only had to work out and go to meetings in the morning, and then we had the afternoons off. So it was just enough time for me to get in my truck, drive back up here an hour, make it out to get like the last 2.5 hours of daylight. So I was shooting my bow a ton that summer, and Matthews used to have a program called Bows for Pros, and they would send a free bow to pro athletes to get more guys into it. And so shout out to Matthews. I got a free bow from them for my first bow, Matthews Z9, still shoot it to this day. And I hit the deer woods. My first year was not very productive. You know what I mean? I didn't really know what I was doing. A lot of times I was out there by myself. My cousin worked a lot. He's a steel mill guy. So I was pretty much just learning on the fly. I missed my first 2 deer. The first one was a buck at about 20 yards, and I was shaking so bad that I forgot to even look through my peep sight. And I shot probably an inch over his back, and it hit the tree he was standing next to. And he ran down the hill. I thought I hit him. I was so excited. Called my cousin. I'm like, hey, you got to get over here. I shot the buck, blah, blah, blah. Had pictures of it and everything. And I get out to go look at the arrow in the tree. Thought it was a pass-through. And I look down the hill, and the buck's standing there looking at me, and he just starts blowing at me and walks away. And I was just like, oh, I was crushed. I thought I was going to cry. But, yeah, and then, I shot a doe maybe like a week after that, and was like super excited about it, awesome. Then missed another doe after that, and that was pretty much my first season. And I gun hunt once a year pretty much. We do like a push with cousins and family friends. And that I'm not a big gun hunter, but I love pushing deer. I love what it does for camaraderie, how it brings everyone together. Gun season's really a good time, I think. Get the kids out there and get them exposed to it. So yeah, man, I just kind of jumped all into it right away and just haven't really looked back.
How many years ago was that then?
Oh, that was in 2013.
Yeah. Very cool. Chad, you got anything?
I guess before we started recording, we were talking about some things you had going on as far as in the hunting industry, I guess. And,
Right.
We had briefly touched on like hunting numbers and the decline over the last
Oh, yeah.
probably 10 to 15 years. And it, as a company in the industry, that's a concern for everyone because, it's how we make our, it's our livelihood. If there's no hunters buying our products, obviously we don't have a company.
Right.
So I think, whether it's recruitment, retention, that's something that's present on all of our minds. But you guys, I guess you specifically talked about something you have in the works. Why don't you talk a little bit about that and
Oh, yeah.
what the goal and what that actually is?
So like I said earlier, being blessed with great neighbors. The same neighbor who I co-manage his property with and all that stuff happens to be our county game warden. And he's a younger fella, great dude. He was actually the first neighbor who came to my house when I bought my house to come say hello, welcome me when he saw me outside. I at that time had never met a game warden. You know what I mean? I had only heard stories from, old timers and
them
stuff.
Being jerks or
yeah,
whatnot,
them being like terrible people,
right?
So this guy pulls in my driveway and he's like, "Hey man, I'm your neighbor, blah blah blah," and he sees my bow hanging in there. He's like, "Oh, you hunt?" And I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, I'm also the county game warden, so if you ever need anything, if anything happens or you need any help, just I live across the street. Here's my phone number. Give me a call." So he it was a pretty cool thing. He had me and a bunch of the other neighbors who lived around his property over for like dinner, hang out, and then we went to a Whitetails Unlimited banquet together so that we could all like get a chance to meet, talk deer, all the deer in the neighborhood and all that stuff. So it was kind of at that point I started hanging out with him as a friend. Through that, he was at a state meeting for the Department of Wildlife or whatever, and they were talking about hunter numbers on the decline for so long and what the average hunter is, and the average hunter being something like a 40-year-old white guy, and he, and he had been thinking, they've been talking about, what their strategies were and who they had been reaching out to, and it's basically that same population, and like, their kids and things like that, which, it's been about a decade these things have been on the decline, so it obviously isn't really working that great. So he automatically called, texted me, and he was like, "Man, I think they were talking about all these descriptions and stuff, and I automatically thought of you. You're at the time I was 28, retired NFL guy, black, didn't grow up in the country, didn't grow up hunting, but I'm as passionate about it, probably not as knowledgeable as anybody, but as passionate about it as anybody. I think there's a place for me and to find other people like me who can come in and give the sport that boost that it needs and really that exposure. You know what I mean? It's the hunting community is something that I think everybody should be exposed to. You know what I mean? Everybody who eats meat and things like that, and you know what I mean? I think it's a great thing to be able to see that full circle and be a part of that. And there's so many kids out there who, and adults too, who have never had access to land or never known anyone who hunted or had anyone to teach them, or, don't have access to bows and guns, and like those things aren't cheap. So what we did, we came up with an idea to start a nonprofit geared towards diversity in the outdoors and new hunters, and just exposing the sport to people who aren't the typical hunter. So we're in the beginning stages. We've really been in the think tank about this one, and we've been blessed to be able to work with a couple groups, and On Target Outdoors had us out and really expose us to their operation and what they do. They're like a Christian faith-based outdoors group. They do summer camps and for kids, teaching them survival skills, how to fish, how to hunt, how to shoot guns, bows, like indoor, outdoor archery ranges, ponds, all that kind of stuff. And so we kind of really want to do something along those lines, not just summer, but all year round in kids and adults, teaching people how to scout for deer, turkeys, not just deer, turkeys, whatever, how to hang tree stands safely, how to shoot a bow, how to shoot a gun, just the whole thing, basically field to fork. Just there's such a huge audience out there that just there's so many relatable ways to come in contact with them, and I just really think that between me being a former football player, me being a different look from your normal hunter, I think that I really have a platform to reach those people, and I think it would probably be a big waste and to everybody if I didn't try.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that obviously it makes sense with your platform, and I think a lot of times the biggest block for people who don't have access to woods or property or even the gear, but that's one thing. But I think the biggest block is not having a mentor or someone to actually expose them. And if you guys are able to provide that, I think the rest is a lot easier obtained. As far as the gear and public land hunting has gone
Right.
through a craze like the last few years, and there's more and more states providing access to not only land but waterways for fishing and access. So I'm excited to see what comes of that.
Yeah, me too. Like having my neighbor Marty Sassine, as the state wildlife officer, it provides a great avenue of communication with them, and they've been very open to all the ideas we've had. You know what I mean? We'd like to have somewhat of a controlled environment to teach people how to scout and things like that. Hopefully separate from public land.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So there's not like squirrel hunters out here shooting everywhere.
Right.
Whatever. Why we've got this 12-year-old and this 28-year-old who have never even been in the woods but are interested. So trying to open up avenues to gain access to the state wildlife refuge areas and things like that are something that we've talked about, and we've got big plans, but first things first, we've got to finish out our process of becoming a certified nonprofit and those things, and then we'll be looking for a place where we can hold summer camps and have a building where we can hold archery lessons and all those sorts of things. And so we've got a lot of stuff ahead of us, but if there's any two guys who are down for the challenge, I think it's us. And we've got a lot of really great people backing us, and I think it's something that the community needs, and I think especially around here, we're Rust Belt area people, so there's a lot of low income people around here who they live within vicinity of public hunting lands, and how great would it be to get those people out there and give them something to do, and take a little bit off of somebody's plate. Give them something to get a break from the hard world.
Right. The problem, I think everyone in the industry is aware of the problem. And if you think about it in its simplest terms, it can be fixed really easy. Like if I take one person and be a mentor for that person for a year, and Jake does the same thing, and Cameron does the same thing, and you do the same thing, and then every person in the industry does.
Each one.
You just doubled the numbers in 1 year. But the problem is, and I'm guilty of this, as I guess whitetail fanatics, you get so serious and wrapped up in going out and trying to kill the biggest deer, and your time becomes so selfishly used towards your goals, like you don't even think about.
It does.
You don't even think about.
And it's because we do work so hard. You know what I mean? Like when you get so deep into the deer hunting, like it's what you think about all day long.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so when you're into that, when it comes time, that's what your focus is. But I just think taking the time this year to get some new people in. I've got a 10-year-old nephew. It'll be his first year hunting. He's been in the woods with me the last 2 years, but this will be the first year he gets to shoot. He's been shooting the crossbow dead on, so we're waiting. Got a couple nice bucks on camera for him. But I think just really having that different experience and getting to see how happy someone is, the same way that you were the first time that you got to experience that. For me, it's something I can't wait to really experience on a bigger scale. But with Cam, the camera guy here, that's what I call him,
Cam the camera guy.
Cameraman.
So me and Cam started hunting together a couple years ago, and Cam had never shot a buck with his bow, and I've got access to so many different places to hunt in the area. My family has been blessed for a lot of us to be able to own property, so. Me and Cam started hunting together. I put him on. There's a nice piece behind my family business, And there's a nice 136-inch 9-point that he had been getting pictures of back there. And I remember it like it was yesterday. He texted me. It was like noon or something. And he was like, hey, man, here's this buck. He's like, you care if I kill it? And I was like, man, that's a nice buck. I'd probably shoot that. I haven't shot a buck in years since my first one, you know. And I was like, oh, yeah, dude. I was like, get out there. What are you waiting on, you know? And I think I got the text at like 5:30 or something, and he was all excited. He had got it. And, man, I tell you what, my drive from my house to there, oh, man, I felt like I shot the deer. You know what I mean? And when we got out there, it was, you know, all smiles and tears and smiles, and oh, it was great, you know. So that for me was one of my greatest moments in the woods, and
That's cool.
To get to do that for more people, I think that's something that kind of feeds my soul a little more than me shooting the big buck. You know, I'm only 29, so I got plenty of years to go, hopefully. But so I think, you know, give back a little, and
That's cool.
Maybe it'll pay off for me.
So what do you have in store for this year? I know that, again, we probably should have just started recording as soon as you walked through the door, because we've been talking about deer stories and funny things going on and just your life in general. But share the experience and the story of what happened last year, probably during the, I don't know the time frame, but probably during the rut.
Yep.
And then that deer and what is going on. You know, what's your plan this year to get back?
Yeah, so it was pre-rut, and the story actually started before I'd even seen the deer. So, you know, me and my neighbor co-managed this, like, about 1,000 acres, maybe 1,100 acres, and 300 acres of it was acquired last year. And I hadn't been on it, hadn't hunted it, hadn't seen the deer on it, you know, anything like that. Wasn't aware that this deer was around. But he had been spending his summer on what has to be a mile away from my house, straight west, across 2 roads through, like I said, it's got to be 800 acres of timber. And so I'm, you know, waiting for a shooter buck to show up, Had been out hunting a couple other pieces, hoping to see something. Cameras just weren't lighting up for me, right? And I'm sitting in the house with my girlfriend one day, and I look out the window, and there's a nice, like, 2-3-year-old buck making a scrape like 10 feet from my shed. And I'm like, wow, look at this. So I start taking pictures of him, you know, grab my Nikon, start taking pictures of him. All of a sudden he turns around, looks back towards the woods, and this giant, like, biggest deer I'd ever seen, walks out of the woods. He's got to be about 160 inches or so. His antlers are so thick they look like my wrists, and my wrists don't look like Chad's wrists. You know,
There we go.
And so it was
Offensive, defense, they just go like this.
You don't want it. No, but so they start fighting in the backyard. It's a food plot that I got planted back there. It's probably like half an acre. Had it in Big and Beastie, I think. And there's like 6 does out there, 10 turkeys, and these 2 bucks, and they just start going at it. Probably I think they were fighting for like 7 minutes or so. I recorded the whole thing, called Cam right away. You can hear me on the recording telling Cam how big the deer's neck is and how huge he is, and I'm like freaking out, right? And so I film it all from the kitchen window, and I'm like, all right, got to put a stand right out there. You know what I mean? It's perfect. The wind blows right back at the house, you know what I mean? And it's so close to the house that they literally can't be out there without smelling dogs and humans the whole time. So this deer, my neighbor's dog starts barking at it. It postures up to the dog, trots off into the woods, and goes right into all my trail cameras. So I just get pictures galore of them. And I put the stand out there, and I waited for the wind and weather to be right, which was just a couple of days later. And I go out there. I'm like, all right, I'm sitting all day. Who cares? I'm just going to all day sit. He's coming out. So, about 10 a.m. rolls around. It's pouring rain. It's like pouring cats and dogs rain. Like, I'm miserable. I can see the house from the stand. My girlfriend's in the kitchen cooking breakfast, and I'm like, oh, man. I'm like, well, nature's calling. I got to poop. And my girlfriend's cooking, so I'm like, well, I'll text her, be like, babe, can you have me something ready when I get in there? I'm gonna come and go to the bathroom, grab food, and run back out. So I go to the bathroom. I go to grab my food, look out the window. No deer in the field, but here comes the big guy walking right where I want him. He walks right past my stand, 20 yards, goes in the woods, turns right back around, walks right back out, goes right back to bed. And, I mean, he's bedded down probably 50 yards from my house, from my bedroom window. Like, literally. I sat in my bedroom window and looked and watched for this deer to come out, like, for days when the weather wasn't right, just hoping I could see him again. And so I freaking go out the next morning, and, the weather was good again. I'm hoping to see him. Me and Cam were out, and he came out about 80, 90 yards away from us with another big deer and then a younger deer, and they all postured up at each other and ran off in the woods, and hadn't seen him since. But the other big deer that were with him, there was another one who's equally as big and older. He's a freak. But there was 2 other bucks, and the other 2 I know got killed, and they all hit my trail cameras. The neighbors got killed down there. Didn't hear anything else about him. So I'm hoping he's alive. Shows up around October 20th or so we'll see.
Scrape week.
Yep.
Scrape week.
Yeah.
So I'm one of these guys out here chasing a ghost right now, and I feel great about it.
That's good. How'd the rest of your season end up?
Oh, so that morning when we saw him 90 yards away, and he took off down that way, me and Cam decided to give it a rest. I was pretty frustrated. I was just beat dead. I call the buck the Caddyshack buck because he's like the groundhog in Caddyshack. Every time I go to get him, he pops up over here. He sees me in the house. He pops up. He's messing with me. So we went to another farm I own, and I had another buck on camera all year long. He's really nice, 9-point. We called him Montana for Joe Montana, the Niners. I had a good idea of where he was bedding, so we decided to do a hanging hunt when we went back there on November 11th for the afternoon hunt. Snuck back in there real quiet, as quiet as you can be with these size 16 boats. And he came out like clockwork. We had a couple younger bucks come running down the path like 40 yards. We just walked back until we found a nice trail with some open scrapes around it. And, I mean, it was like clockwork. He came out. I grunted at him. He stopped, looked around, started walking again. I grunted, and he stopped for a second but started taking off. So I snort-wheezed at him, and he came in on a string. Shot him 1/4 though. But when I shot him, the arrow hit him. It smacked him in the spine so hard he literally flipped off a mound, like did a whole flip in the air, landed on his back, couldn't get up. So I put another one in him, and that was that. Yeah.
That's cool.
All right, I put 2 more in him.
Triple tap.
It was not a good day for the deer, and it was not a good day for Cam. Cam was in the tree about to cry because he couldn't take what he was seeing. He's like, "Come on, man, you got to get down there and put another one in him." I'm like, "Cam, he's gonna die, like soon, And he's like, "Come on, man, I can't watch this." So I got down and I did it, and when I did it, it clipped a sapling. The second arrow clipped a sapling when I shot it because he was like, yeah, and it hit him right in the butt. So, yeah, then I walked directly up to it and shot it through the heart. And
that was your second buck?
Yeah, second one ever. Yeah. So it was pretty crazy. But, yeah, Cam, like, he thought it was pretty weird. He's up there shaking in the tree. And I was like, man, I'm supposed to be shaking. I'm like, Cam, look at me. And he's like, what's wrong with you? I was like, I don't know. But by the time I got on the ground, I was like, ooh, good thing I'm not in the tree anymore. Like,
yeah.
Oh, it was great. But, yeah, man, I waited like 3 years for that buck. So it was awesome.
Figuring it out year by year.
Yeah, year by year.
So how many trail cameras are you using? I'm just curious. We always like to ask people.
Oh, man. Before I started helping out with the big piece, I was probably I was hunting like 6 different spots, and I was probably running like 12, 15 cameras. None of my hunting spots are overly big. The biggest one at the time was probably like 70 acres. You know what I mean? So I didn't really need a ton of cameras to cover them. And they all have like good pinch points and some good topo features. So it was pretty easy. Now we're running somewhere between 20 and 30 or so, all different brands. You know, we're dealing with a lot of, with a new piece of property, we're dealing with a lot of guys who never really had permission to hunt there, but, you know, everybody hunted there and all that stuff. So we're dealing with a lot of human pressure and trying to get those people out of there. So we kind of try to use some of the old cameras that we got laying around because we have had a few stolen and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, we're running 20 to 30 various brands of cameras.
Nice. Yeah, in a couple of years, you'll get all those people off, and the property will get better every year. So
yeah, it like just from our presence being there this year and doing the work we did, it's already made a heck of a difference. But I mean, a lot of it's four-wheeler guys, four-wheeler riders, and stuff like that, which around here,
it's pretty big.
Yeah.
It's still kind of crazy though that like if a game warden owns the county warden, you know, ODNR law officer owns the piece or is managing a piece, like
that would not
still
be
trespass.
one you would want to jump the fence on.
Yeah, that's what I always think. And you know, like Marty, he's such a nice and kind guy, and he definitely likes to give people the benefit of the doubt. You know what I mean? And he so you know, he also as a property owner and manager, kind of. You know, he's not one who like holds his authority over people's heads. You know what I mean? Like he's not just gonna come at somebody like, "Oh, I'm the game warden," blah blah blah. You know, he's not that kind of guy. You know, he's more like, "Hey, I'm the neighbor. I manage this piece. You know, we really don't want anybody on here. We know that people have been, you know, doing whatever they want here for some time, but we're kind of, you know, closing it down." And I guess if it gets to that point where he needs to, you know, take action or something, you know, then, you know, we'll see whenever we cross that bridge. But, yeah, man, it's, like, so surprising, though, because people definitely figure it out, you know, like, a lot of the hunters know who he is, so they know. And, like, when I first moved in, they've got about, like, I think it's about a 100-acre piece that goes right beside my property. And when I met him, I was like, yeah, I'm not walking in there. It's all posted. It's his. I'm like, this is the game warden's property. I'm like, I'm not even walking through there. You know what I mean? And like I had like my cousin's like not a good old boy, but he's kind of a good old boy, you know, great dude. But he grew up hunting in the 80s, 90s, you know,
just go wherever you want.
Yeah. Go wherever you want. And the piece of property he grew up on borders Shenango, wildlife area. Yeah. So, you know, he's literally a nomad. So, you know, the first time I had him hunting over there, he's like, yeah, let's go back here. I'm like, no. I'm like, this is posted by the warden, man. Are you crazy? what don't you get? But yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely been an interesting experience as a new hunter, being good friends with the game warden and just kind of having him as a resource for when I don't know things. You know what I mean? Like we even there was even an incident, Cam's first bow buck he shot. You know, a lot of hunters make, I think a lot of people make this mistake. It's an honest mistake, but Cam had bought tags earlier in the season, shot does with them, you know, either sex tags, and thought he had another tag and then didn't, but he bought the tag and tagged the deer right there in the field and reported it. But, you know, that comes up in the system. And, you know, Marty, not knowing that me and Cam had any kind of friendship or anything, you know, Cam was honest about it, and Marty gave him the benefit of the doubt. And, you know, Cam had to, what did you get, a summons to court or something? He had to go, but they didn't take his deer, you know what I mean? He, you know, so I mean, you know, as long as you're upfront and honest and, you know, not being shady. I think a lot of those guys, you know, they're really great guys. They're outdoorsmen. You know, they like a lot of those guys went to school for this, you know, to be better outdoorsmen and stuff. So, you know, they're passionate about the same stuff as we are, and you know, it's a great thing to be friends. You know, whether you need to know something about a public game area, whether you want to call and, you know, ask like, you know, how much pressure is over here? What's it been like? Like how many big bucks are taken out of this area or that area? If you build a relationship, I think I saw Dan Infeld talking about that. He does all that homework before he goes to a public land area, and if you have a good relationship with those guys, it pays off for him.
Yeah, I think it's like you hit the nail on the head. Like those guys get into that line of work because they're passionate about it. Like that's they love it. Like they have a fire for that. And they're not going into that field saying, you know what, I'm going to be a ODNR officer because I want to screw every hunter that.
Yeah,
that's not the mentality.
I want to go make sure people have tags. Like
that's not the mentality. And I think you made a good point as far as using them as a resource. I think more people do that in the West. Will call in and talk to a wildlife biologist or a law enforcement officer and check like a specific GMU, but like there's not a lot of whitetail guys that play that card.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's like you see a lot more of it now with like the YouTube age and guys having all their shows and stuff, and like the hunting public guys, and, how open they are with how they communicate with people, whether it's going on other people's property to get a deer, things like that, but. It's definitely not a big thing around here. Not even a little bit. I go to those whitetails and limited banquets and stuff, and sometimes you'll see guys in there and they'll be like, "Oh, the warden's here! Oh God, everybody look out! Don't say nothing crazy. The warden's here." And I'm like, man, you guys are nuts. Like, you know how crazy you sound. Like, you should probably come introduce yourself, say hi.
Yeah,
you might need something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of those guys are like have been in that profession or line of work for a long time.
Oh yeah.
Most of them that are like lifers per se, and that's a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah. Like having him as a tool, as a buddy, and a hunting partner. The guy's taught me so much. You know what I mean? Like, and I think he was also like me, started hunting kind of on his own as a kid. He grew up in Youngstown. And oddly enough, had been hunting the property that he owns and hunts now. He had got permission to hunt there way back then, so he's been hunting the same piece for forever. But yeah, just being in the woods with a guy who not only like is actually formally educated on this stuff, but has been doing it for so many years and learned on his own too. It's been paramount to my success, and just me having a good time being in the woods. You know what I mean? Sure. Just always learning. Because like I said, I'm a new hunter, so like I don't know everything by any means. Probably don't even know a lot. But I have a great time being with people who do, picking their brains, trying to learn as much as I can. It's like anything. You watch somebody do something they're great at, whether it's Michael Jordan playing basketball, or it's Peyton Manning or Tom Brady playing football, or if it's guys like Bill Winke or Bill Jordan or any of those guys hunting deer. It's like it's awesome to be around the presence of per se like greatness or something. So it's been cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
That's cool. One question we always ask is, what is your favorite day to hunt? Every year. Do you have a special date that you circle on the calendar every year, or not yet?
See, not yet, because I haven't killed enough bucks yet. Yeah, I think the more I learn, the whole special date thing doesn't really appeal to me.
That's a good answer.
Between watching the guys on the Deer Society and trying to learn about the Red Moon Guide and the Red Moons, and watching the hunting public guys and all the ground and pound stuff they do, and whether it's that or how they wind bump deer and do all that wild stuff. I just feel like you make your own luck, so you can make your own lucky day, however you want. Just go play the wind right somewhere and, get keyed in on what you got to do to be successful. And you've got a good chance of making that day your day if you really want to.
Agreed.
Very good answer.
It doesn't matter if it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Sunday.
Yeah.
Wake up and get after
Sunday
it.
if you're in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Come on, good old boy.
Take that
back. Cool. Well, we have to ask, too, and it's like when someone has like a broken arm, you're like, oh, how'd you break your arm? Like they've been asked a million times. But I'm going to go ahead and ask you, do you have any good NFL stories that would just shock the average person's mind? Like, what?
Oh, man. Good NFL stories.
Or like football stories in general. You can go back to Ohio State if you'd like as well.
Oh, I mean, the whole experience of playing in that, and I mean, it just those memories are crazy. You know what I mean? Like I've got crazy memories from bowl games like Arkansas. We were playing Arkansas Razorbacks my junior year in the Sugar Bowl. We had been in trouble with the NCAA, me specifically. And like they had decided to let me and 5 of the other best players on the team, all Big Ten left tackle, all Big Ten running back, Big Ten Player of the Year quarterback, all Big Ten wide out. The guy who ended up having the game-winning interception in the Sugar Bowl, they let us all play, and so we had the world against us, you know. And I remember we were coming out of our own end zone on like the 4-yard line. And it was so loud in there. And Arkansas fans, you know, they're the Razorbacks, so they yell like "Suey," like all that. And it was so loud in there. When I got my 3-point stance, I could feel the ground shake, like with my hand. I could feel it moving. That's
pretty intense.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Stuff like that, you know. I mean, Ohio State football. You know, we played Michigan. It's like the biggest rivalry in sports, arguably that and Yankees Red Sox or whatever you want to say, but. You know, playing against in front of 120,000 people on the road against Michigan, winning those games, hearing that crowd silence, winning those games at Ohio State, being there. As a recruit, I had probably the most memorable moment that I could have ever had. I was there for the game, Ohio State, Michigan, 2006. It was number 1 versus number 2. To see who would go to the national championship before there was a Big Ten championship game. I was sitting in the front row on like the 45-yard line, and Ohio State won it 42-39. And at the end, everyone rushed the field, and they still had grass at this time. So, you know, I went in the locker room after, and you know, these guys are in there smoking cigars, popping bottles of champagne, throwing money around. It was crazy. I was like, wow, can't wait to get here. But after that, I went up to the press box to have dinner with Tressel. And, you know, we were up there eating steak, and he's like, come look at this. I want to show you something, how important Ohio State is to these people, to everybody, you know, how big this is, you know, because, you know, it's no man is as big or bigger than the program. But we looked down, and there were chunks of grass ripped for, like, basically half of the field had been ripped off because it was the last grass that would ever be played on in Ohio Stadium. And fans took 50, 100, you know, like yard chunks of grass were just gone. People took it to plant in their front yards. And I was like, wow, this is different. Like, you don't see this at any of these other schools I've been to visit, you know what I mean? And, like, that was unreal. And then, you know, as a pro, my first pro game was in Denver. It was Monday Night Football versus the Broncos, Peyton Manning's first game. So it was pretty hyped up, you know, his first game coming from the Colts. And the year before that, they had beat the Steelers in the AFC Championship game. Tebow threw the pass and broke the tackle. So we were back out there for the rematch, and I wasn't starting yet. And in the first quarter, the guy in front of me went down, so I was right in there. Had never played a snap at right tackle before in my life. And, I had to go in at right tackle against Von Miller and Elvis Dumervil. Had a great time, held my own. It was a hell of an environment. I mean, it was the loudest NFL game that I had ever been in. And it was something. And that was definitely baptism by fire. But I won Rookie of the Year for my team, which was cool. I spoke in front of the most people I ever had to before, impromptu. They're like, yeah, you're speaking tonight at halftime of this preseason game. You know, there's like 50,000 out there. Have fun. What are you going to say? I'm like, all right, thanks. But yeah, just lots of cool experiences, lots of great people I came in contact with. Just really blessed the whole way around, was really able to give back a lot. You know, the NFL does a lot of stuff with the United Way and the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and in Pittsburgh we did a lot of stuff with local groups like Urban Impact and things like that. And now even living here, it's given me the opportunity to hopefully get this nonprofit rolling, work with kids in the area, people in the area, and just really be able to do what I love and help people, and and get more people exposed to my interests.
So if anybody that is listening to our podcast, where can they just give yourself a shout out, where they can find you, where they can follow you on social, all that stuff?
You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Mike_Adams75, on Facebook, Mike Adams. But yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Do you have is there any sort of link or anything for that nonprofit yet, or is that still
not yet, but if you follow me on there, I'll be posting a lot of stuff leading up to that, all that stuff in the works for this fall. So yeah, appreciate it.
Very cool. Yeah, we appreciate you coming into the office. Really enjoyable conversation and really interesting, and really look forward to what you're going to do with that nonprofit. That's neat. It hasn't been done yet, to my knowledge, anyways, and it's a different, unique approach. So it's exciting. Heck yeah, and I mean we're all it's a Trumbull County thing. It's people from Trumbull County, Mahoning County, everywhere around here, Columbiana County. So we're all local boys. So it's nice to have you guys here too, and any way we can do stuff together or help people get into it together and all that, look forward to it.
Absolutely. I think in the meantime, we got to get you in the squirrel woods and do a little squirrel
woods. I'll do it.
I want to show you.
I got a nice 22 that Whitetails Unlimited made me. Little Henry repeater. I got that little whisperer too, the pellet gun.
Yeah.
I got a couple groundhogs
and
with
a tree climbing competition.
Oh,
right then.
Yeah.
Well, he's like 7 inches taller than me, so.
Yeah, we're going one-on-one O-line, D-line pass rush too.
So. Maybe like a handicap or height difference or something.
No, I don't need that. I don't need that.
All right, straight up there.
Chad's gonna come back in. His forms are gonna be all ripped up from the trees. I won.
He's gonna be practicing every day. He's gonna have like a chicken fight where they put razors. He's gonna have razor attached to his wrist.
Oh my gosh. Dude, speaking of that, I mean other cultures and stuff like that. I spent some time in the Dominican Republic, and cockfighting is a thing there. And I went on this tour to go jump off waterfalls, me and my girlfriend. And they're like, yeah, so we're also going to take you to this cockfighting arena. I'm like, what? Really? Yeah. And so the way they train these chickens, they put boxing gloves over their spurs so they can fight but not hurt each other. So it was me and a little 6-year-old Russian kid holding these cockfighting chickens in practice rounds and stuff. And I was like, wow, not in America, Jack, but this is pretty crazy.
That's funny. I actually when we were kids, we had chickens at the house, and I was 2 or 3. I got attacked and pecked and spurred by the rooster.
Now you're afraid of chickens.
No, I was marked up there a little bit, but that thing, it was dead after that.
It was dead after that.
You're doing, or
no? I was 2 or 3. I was a little kid,
I was 5 or 6 maybe.
No, but we do have some home videos when we were Steve and I 15, 16, same deal. My grandma had a rooster next door. It was just a mean asshole basically, and. So instead of going in there and just catching the thing, because you turn your back and it would
just come get you.
Yeah, it sprawl its wings out or whatever, and then lunge at you and try to spur you. So my brother got a piece of baler twine and was trying to lasso this thing. He gets a caught and we drag it out to the yard and just fill it up with 22 shells. But
Steve was rough on the
You can't make chicken nuggets out of it with a bunch of 22 shells in it.
No, man, no. Yeah, there's a lot of stories about animals and
another day
wrongdoings.
Farm life, right?
Yeah, farm life. That's exactly it. Yep.
But, well, anything else you want to add here?
Oh, man, no, I think thanks for having me on, guys. It's been great.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Our pleasure.